And is it the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America?
Este momento es con Google. Ya contestaron la carta y ya les volvimos a contestar. Y si es necesario.
The world is watching one of the most unexpected geopolitical storm erupts. President Trump has officially pushed for the Gulf of Mexico to be renamed the Gulf of America. This move has sent shockwaves through Washington, Mexico City, and beyond. The big question on everyone's mind, is this a bold assertion of American dominance or a reckless provocation that could escalate into a full-blown diplomatic crisis? Welcome back, everyone. This is not just about a name change. It's about power, history, and international rivalry. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum is pushing back hard, accusing Trump of trying to rewrite geography and erase centuries of history. But is this just the beginning of an even bigger conflict? Stick with us as we break down the explosive ramifications of this unprecedented decision. This battle isn't just being fought in press conferences and diplomatic channels. It's also playing out in the streets. Protests have erupted across Mexico, with thousands taking to the streets, waving banners that read El Golfo es Mexico, and chanting against what they see, calling it an insult to the sovereignty of the nation. Meanwhile, in the US, Trump's supporters argue that renaming the Gulf is an act of patriotism, one that reinforces America's influence over the region and its economic waters. But what does this mean for the future of US-Mexico relations? Experts warn that this dispute could have serious economic consequences. Trade between the two nations is already under strain, and Mexico is now threatening to reconsider key agreements, including energy and maritime regulations. The timing is crucial. Both leaders are eyeing their political legacies, and neither wants to be seen as backing down. And here's where things take an even more unpredictable turn. The United Nations has been drawn into the controversy. Several member nations, including Spain and Canada, have weighed in, cautioning that such a unilateral renaming could set a dangerous precedent. Could this move lead to a wider global dispute, with other nations pushing to redefine international borders and regional names? Meanwhile, behind the scenes, oil companies and shipping industries are scrambling to assess how this could impact trade routes, fishing rights, and resources claims. The Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, is one of the most economically vital regions in the Western Hemisphere. A change in its identity might be symbolic, but the financial and political repercussions could be very real. Trump's latest executive order is being called one of his most controversial yet. The move to rename the Gulf is being framed as an act of patriotism, a way to reinforce American strength. But is it really about sovereignty? Or is it a calculated power play in an election season filled with nationalist rhetoric? Trump has long emphasized the importance of reclaiming American identity, often at the cost of international relationships. His administration argues that the Gulf has been economically and strategically dominated by the US for decades. So why should Mexico get the same recognition? But here's the catch. This move isn't just symbolic. It has real consequences. Mexico relies on the Gulf for trade, tourism, and natural resources. If Trump gets his way, will this spark economic retaliation? Will Mexico look at global allies like China or the EU for support? Mexico has already begun exploring alternative trade routes and economic partnerships. Mexican officials have reportedly to European and Asian markets to diversify their economic dependencies, signaling that they are prepared for a long standoff. Meanwhile, the US fishing industry and energy sector are raising concerns about potential disruption in supply chain as Mexico weighs new tariffs on American goods in response to Trump's move. Diplomatically, this standoff is growing more intense by the day. Mexico's President Sheinbaum has issued a strong warning, stating that any attempt to enforce this name change on official documents or treaties will be met with fierce opposition. Mexican legal experts are considering taking the matter to the International Court of Justice, arguing that the move violates established. At the same time, Trump is doubling down. His administration is pushing for the renaming to appear in government documents and official US communications, which could add further strain to already tense relations. Political analysts speculate that this could be a strategic maneuver to rally nationalist support ahead of elections, using this controversy to shift focus from domestic issues to a patriotic cause. As the tensions escalate, economic and trade implications are becoming more evident. Mexico has hinted at restricting access to vital shipping lanes, potentially disrupting US oil and gas exports. American companies that rely on Gulf ports for commerce are growing increasingly anxious about how this conflict might impact their operations. Meanwhile, environmental organizations have raised concerns about the legal status of international waters, fearing that this dispute could interfere with conversations, agreements, and maritime protections. Could this dispute trigger a larger trade war between the US and Mexico? Will diplomatic interventions from global powers de-escalate the situation, or is this the beginning of a prolonged geopolitical conflict? This is a geopolitical clash unlike anything we've seen before, and as tensions continue to rise, the world is waiting to see who will emerge victorious in this battle over history, power, and national identity. Mexico isn't backing down. President Claudia Sheinbaum is calling this a hostile act, vowing legal actions against American companies and even tech giants like Google if they update maps to reflect the name change. But this isn't just about maps, it's about sovereignty, national pride, and historical legacy. Mexico views this as a direct attack on its territorial identity, and Sheinbaum is determined to fight back with every tool available. Sheinbaum isn't just rejecting the idea, she's turning it into a rallying cry. Nationwide protests have erupted. Mexican lawmakers are now pushing for diplomatic intervention, calling on international bodies like the United Nations and the Organization of American States to formally condemn Trump's decision. Sheinbaum has even reached out to leaders in Canada and Europe, hoping to build a coalition to challenge what she calls Americans' reckless overreach. And the response? Fierce. The Mexican government is considering aggressive economic countermeasures. Officials have floated the possibility of imposing steep tariffs on U.S. agricultural products and auto imports, industries that heavily depend on Mexican trade. There is also growing discussions about reviewing American business investments in Mexico, potentially restricting U.S. companies from key sectors like energy and manufacturing. But could this strategy backfire? Trump has never been one to back down from economic threats. If Mexico escalates, will Trump respond with even more aggressive policies? A trade war between the two nations could have devastating consequences, sending shockwaves through North American markets. Businesses on both sides of the border are bracing for potential fallout. Wall Street analysts warning that economic retaliation could destabilize industries ranging from auto manufacturing to agriculture. And then there is wildcard, other global powers. If Mexico turns to China or the EU, could this realign international alliances in unexpected ways? Could this dispute over a name spiral into something far more consequential, reshaping North American trade relationships and fueling new geopolitical rivalries? One thing is certain, this isn't just about renaming a body of water, this is about power, national identity, and who gets to define history. And as tensions rise, the world is watching closely to see who will make the next move. Perhaps the most shocking twist in the geopolitical standoff, the battle has gone digital. The fight over the Gulf of America isn't just being waged political offices or diplomatic meetings. It's unfolding in real time. Right now, on your screen, Google Maps, Apple Maps, and Wikipedia platforms, billions rely on information, have become the new frontline where history is being rewritten, not with ink and paper, but with algorithms and server updates. And the shift is already happening in certain regions in the US. Users are spotting Gulf of America appearing on their maps, but south of the border in Mexico and much of the world, the name remains Gulf of Mexico. So here's the real question. Who decides what stays and what disappears? Right now, Google remains silent, but make no mistakes, behind the scenes, the pressure is now mounting. President Trump has made his position crystal clear, and sources suggest his administration is actively pushing tech companies to make this switch nationwide. A quiet change in digital map could solidify this name shift faster than any official decree. But Mexico isn't sitting idly by. The president of Mexico has vowed to resist this renaming, calling it a direct attack on the country's sovereignty. If Google, Apple, or Wikipedia comply with Trump's demands, what happens next? Will Mexico retaliate? Could we see international boycotts, lawsuits, or even diplomatic tensions spill into economic sanctions? Man, make no mistake. This is about control over information, about who gets to define reality in the digital age. If a single executive order can alter the name of a historic body of water on millions of screens overnight, what else could be changed with enough political pressure? The world is watching. The digital battlefield is shifting, and in the shadows, tech giants once considered neutral players are being forced to pick a side. Their decision won't just affect the name on a map, it could redefine history itself. Make no mistake. This is about far more than just geography. This is about power. It's about legacy. It's about who controlled the narrative. For President Trump, the push to rename the Gulf of Mexico into the Gulf of America isn't just a symbolic gesture. It's a bold statement of dominance. His supporters see it as a patriotic victory, a reclamation of American pride, another step in solidifying his vision of a stronger, more assertive United States. But across border, President Sheinbaum and her administration see it as an undeniable act of defiance, an attack on Mexico's history, culture, and sovereignty. To her supporters, this isn't just about name change. It's an attempt to erase their heritage, a move that must be resisted at all costs. Yet the real danger, this conflict isn't staying within the borders of these two nations. It's rippling outward, influencing global politics, trade, and diplomatic relations. Mexico's allies in Latin America are already voicing their opposition. Political leaders in Europe and Asia are weighing their stances, watching closely to see whether this fight is simply symbolic or if it makes a new era of aggressive nationalism. And then there is the election factor. With major elections looming in both the US and Mexico, this controversy could become the defining wedge issue that reshapes alliances, policies, and even economies. For Trump, this could serve a rallying cry, a strategic move to energize his base, pushing the narrative of American exceptionalism just as voters head to the polls. But will it backfire? Could it alienate key allies or fuel tensions within his own party? For Sheinbaum, the stakes are just as high. Does she stand firm risking economic retaliation from the US, or does she find a way to de-escalate without losing face? A wrong move could cost her political capital or even her presidency. And beyond the politicians, there is an even greater force at play, the people. If this issue spirals out of control, could it ignite mass protests, economic boycotts, a diplomatic standoff that forces other world leaders to take sides? Who holds the power? Who writes history? And most importantly, who wins? The battle over the Gulf of America isn't just a political dispute. It's a war of identity, economics, and international influence. President Trump isn't just proposing a name change. He's making a statement about American dominance, who gets the final say in global affairs. But the president of Mexico sees this as an act of defiance, an insult that cannot go unanswered. The Gulf of Mexico isn't just water, it's history, it's sovereignty. And it's a symbol of resistance against foreign control. If Mexico allows this, what's next? A shift in territorial claims? A new precedent for unilateral decisions? Behind the scenes, the pressure is mounting. Who will break first? Will President Trump leverage economic power, sanctions, or corporate alliances to force Mexico's hand? Or will the President of Mexico gather international support, turning this into a global standoff? The answer won't just affect maps, it could alter diplomatic relations for years to come. And then there is the wild card, the people. Will American citizens rally behind Trump's push for a Gulf of America, seeing it as a bold stroke of patriotism, or will public backlash turn the tide? Will Mexican citizens take to the streets to defiance, demanding their leaders push back harder? Social media is already ablaze, with hashtags drawing battle lines. One side chanting Gulf of America, the other fiercely defending Gulf of Mexico. The real danger, the power shift could come from anywhere. A single tweet from Trump, a high-profile corporation choosing sides, a sudden act of defiance from a Mexican official. One wrong move and this could escalate from a diplomatic debate into an economic or political crisis. The question isn't just who wins, it's who makes the next move first. And when they do, will the world be ready? A storm is brewing, and at its heart, a name, a legacy, a power struggle between two nations unwilling to surrender an inch. President Trump has drawn his line in the sand, signing an executive order that has ignited global controversy. With a single stroke of his pen, has challenged decades of history and diplomatic norms. President Sheinbaum sees this not just as a name dispute, but as a test of Mexico's sovereignty, a fighter for respect on the world stage. The Gulf of America, a bold rebranding or an audacious overreach. The Gulf of Mexico, a rightful heritage or a battleground for political power. The world is watching. Will this be the spark that reshapes US-Mexico relations forever? Could this escalate into trade wars, diplomatic standoffs, or something even more unpredictable? Or is it simply another high-stakes political maneuver designed to rally supporters, inflame nationalism, and shift focus from deeper political battles? One thing is certain, this is no ordinary dispute. The Gulf has never witnessed a war quite like this one. One fought not with ships and soldiers, but with words, policies, and the power of global influence. What do you think? Should the Gulf be renamed to reflect America's dominance? Or is this a dangerous attempt to rewrite history? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And this fight is far from over. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because what happens next might just change everything.